I've got some questions for Dan, and then we'll turn it over to audience questions. And we're going to try to take questions on the Facebook feed, but I've got that set up here, so I've got to play with it a little bit to be able to get those questions. We did receive some questions ahead of time. Our focus is going to be on the budget. So please keep that topic in mind as you ask questions. And of course, you can always email questions at everettwa.gov, ask Cassie if you want to submit. So with that, let's get started. First of all, Dan, you have kids. Are any of them, starting school this year in this crazy world that we live in, and how's that going?
Yeah, so we've got one, kindergartner that's going to be entering school. She hasn't started yet, but we're a couple weeks away, and she's gotten her Chromebook from Whittier, and she's getting all excited and getting the backpack and getting her pod ready. So yeah, we're getting excited, and our other our 4-year-old's in pre-K, and he's actually started now. So he's online and he's going, which is a sight to see a 4-year-old in front of a screen. So.
That's awesome. That's great. What a crazy, maybe they'll just think this is the way school is. This is just what you do. Who knows?
That's it. Yeah. Well, and it'll be something to look back on, right? I mean, hopefully we're past this at some point, and they look back and see their first couple of years in school as a learning experience. And as we know, technology is taking over more and more of what we're doing. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they have some sort of version of this going forward as well. So.
Oh, good. Okay, well, let's jump in. First, why don't you, tell me a little bit about the Fiscal Advisory Committee? What does it do? What have you been doing as a committee these last couple of months?
Yeah, so it's a committee of between 12 and 15 community members that's been tasked by the mayor's office as well as city council to kind of look at the budget for not this year, but 2022 and beyond, and kind of taking a look at the long-term budget structural deficit, essentially, that the city is going into. We've taken a look at benchmark studies from different cities around, and the real couple of questions that we're trying to have an answer for, hopefully your office as well as the city council is, does the city have a structural funding gap between expenditures and revenues? And then what does a fiscally sustainable city look like? They want our assessment of the city, the work the city has done in recent years to cut services, implement efficiencies, and explore new tax revenues. And then looking at it, is the status quo fiscally sustainable? And then if we agree there is a structural funding gap between revenues and expenditures, what strategies should the city further explore to address this in order to balance the city's budget in 2022 and beyond? So, it's a big task. We're all trying to take it on. We started meeting in June, and we've been through 4 different meetings to kind of take a look at things, and we've been really in the educational standpoint of educating ourselves up to this point. So.
Well, thank you for, you volunteering an enormous amount of your time to do that work and dig into our finances. I really appreciate it. And so really you're not focused at this year's budget at all. You're really looking at how can you advise us in long term to deal with the structural deficit, which I can say is needed. I think we're looking this year right now at a significant deficit, an $18 million deficit. And just addressing that is our focus. And so I think it'll be incredibly helpful to have that recommendation from the group as to what we might do differently moving forward to deal with this. So thank you. I guess is there something as that, just personally as chair or in the work that you've done on this committee that surprised you?
Yeah, I think looking at everything, just the amount of services that the city offers, it's from a city of the scale of Everett, we really offer a lot of different services, from transportation to parks to all sorts of things. And that's been, something to look at and really understand from my perspective. And it's been a really good learning experience.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay. So, I'm going to, as I sit here with Dan and we can talk a little bit of shop on the budget. I'll try to watch for comments. So make sure if you have a question, put it in the comments and we'll try to get to it. I did receive a couple of comments ahead of time, which is great. And Dan, of course, you're always welcome to ask questions too. You know, you're my special guest, so you get that benefit. But I'll start with one of the questions I got in advance. It was from John. And he asked, how about cutting the fire department 40 to 50%? He shared they don't really fight fires anymore, but, you know, we should keep the aid cars in use. And so first, you know, thanks for the question. I think what many people don't know is that Everett is actually a hotspot, one of the busiest fire areas in Snohomish County, and in both North Everett and Casino Road. And it's mainly because we have, we're a densely populated city, so we're the urban center of Snohomish County. We're the largest city north of Seattle. But we also have, you know, an old and aging infrastructure that I think can be challenging. And so our firefighter team has been very busy putting out fires. There's been about 400 this last year. And of course, this year we had the huge fire on the waterfront that required not only all the resources from Everett Fire, but resources from the surrounding communities. We responded, I guess, to about 16,000 calls for emergency medical services as well. And so there's just a lot of work that happens in the fire department around public safety. And then also outside of that, you know, there's kind of the work that our fire marshals do and safety inspections to hopefully, you know, kind of reduce the number of fires. That being said, we are looking, you know, at other potential service delivery models. I've been having meetings with our fire chief as well as Council Member Stonecipher and Council Member Bader to discuss the possibility of looking at something like a regional fire authority in the future. And so we will we'll keep you as residents engaged in that work. But fire services continue to be pretty important here in Everett. And then, let's see, Janet asked if Everett Transit can be eliminated and community transit can be brought in. This is a great question. I want to first start with transit is a separate budget. So as Dan and I have been talking about the structural deficit, you know, I'm focused on the immediate time and the fiscal advisory committee is looking kind of long term, but that relates to the general fund of the city. Transit has a separate budget, so you got to think of it as a separate business. The city operates this business, but it's completely separate from, you know, the work that we do in police and fire and parks and community services, all those types of the libraries. It's all in the general fund, and transit is somewhere else. But we are doing a rethink transit process right now, collecting community feedback, exploring if there's alternative ways that we could operate Everett Transit and meet the best needs of our growing city. We are expected to grow about 60%, so I certainly don't believe eliminating transit, but, you know, there is a possibility of either expanding Everett Transit or merging with an entity such as Community Transit. And I encourage you to visit everetttransit.org to see if there, you know, if there's information there and participate in that process. So I want to encourage you, again, to put questions in the comments, and just want to open it up for Dan to see if you have a question for me while I take a look here at the comments.
Yeah, I'll also make another comment to the prior question. And Cassie, we are definitely looking as a committee at that as well, because obviously that's a long range plan, and whether it's a priority of the city and how that's going to fit into the budget for the long term. So both of those questions are great questions and something that our committee's been discussing around, and we've had really good participation and really thoughtful discussions around some of these things, of which I think will be hopefully a report that you and the council can use when it comes out in late October. So
thank you. So yeah, Dan, did you have any questions for me?
Yeah, so just reading, I guess this morning, it sounds like there was something passed last night through the city council on the police grant. Can you tell us any more about that, and if there's anything, any additional news on that? Because that's obviously been a topic of discussion recently.
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you. It was a item that we brought forward just a week ago. We briefed it a couple weeks prior to that, and I know our chief sent some information to council. And I think it was, early this year, as I was looking at our budget, and I saw a daunting, at the time, what was looking like a $13 million deficit. I asked every single department head to find whatever resources they could outside the city to fund these basic services that we need to continue to provide. And, last year, Councilmember Murphy and I presented the budget to the community and spoke of the need to hire additional officers. People in our community have been asking for years to have neighborhood officers that they knew. They have said that we haven't been tight enough on response time, so it takes too long for officers to get when someone needs them. And so we heard them and vowed to kind of create a plan to hire additional officers. And so early this year, I asked Chief Deppelman if he could find some money, and lo and behold, he and the team worked really hard on a great application. And I went to DC to meet with the COPS office and talk about the city of Everett. And I can tell you that they were impressed with Everett. I think that the COPS, what it stands for is Community-Oriented Policing Services, I think. And that community part is really important. And to even be competitive, it really has to be around working with the community. And so our hope with this funding is that we create a plan to hire additional officers. The initial focus would be on additional bicycle unit. We have a bicycle unit downtown, and I think that is great for our downtown businesses and our downtown residents. They know them. They feel like they can also get off their bike and talk to people and engage in a really way that makes them very approachable. And I'd love to see our South Everett neighborhood benefit from that as well. And so we'd like to expand and add a couple team members to that unit. And another area that we'd really like to bring these resources to is traffic safety. We have a number of vehicle accidents and fatalities, and really places where traffic safety is a concern, and this is something our residents have brought up numerous times. And so hope that we can expand our traffic unit to prevent accidents, keep people from speeding and DUIs, things like that, and increase safety overall. So that's where our hope we would direct those resources.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for your leadership on that. I know it's a process, right? And so it's really nice to see that our city government's doing that.
Oh, thanks. It was definitely a community effort. So let's see, we do have some questions in the comments here. I think Barbara asked, what is the projected for senior citizens? What about Carl Gibson Senior Center? Thanks for the question, Barbara. Carl Gibson Senior Center is such an important resource in our community. I've gotten, so many questions about it because people love this service and need it. We've been continuing to do meal programs, and I know that we have 30 to 40 seniors that come in daily for those meals. And so our goal is to keep that service here in Everett. Because of the pandemic, senior centers are the last thing to open. So right now we wouldn't be able to operate. I think they don't open until phase 4 in the reopening plan. And as we've kind of learned as a city, it's taking much longer to reopen. Before we got on Facebook Live, Dan and I were talking about kind of what's going on in Europe as things are opening up and then closing and then opening up and closing. And so I'm not sure when we would be able to operate the senior center, but when we are, I think it is an important resource. And so we put together a request for proposals to see if a partner would be interested in providing those services. That would help the city a lot, because it's a very expensive program, and the majority of senior centers in our area are actually run by nonprofits, and they do an amazing job for our seniors. And so we'd love to be able to partner with a nonprofit or other organization who could run the senior center out of our Carl Gibson Senior Center, but help reduce the expenses and cost to taxpayers here in the city. So that's our goal. And let's see, I see another question. Kevin asked, Forest Park pool, and I can give a quick answer. That's kind of the same plan as the senior center. The pool is also another vital resource. It's where so many of our young people learn to swim, and that's a life safety issue, and we really need those resources here in Everett. We're grateful to have the Y pool, which is a great pool, but would love to be able to continue to have a pool here in Everett. Operating it safely in this environment is really hard. It could be very expensive for the city to open it right now because of the reduced number of people who can use it, but we still need the same staffing and everything to operate it. So again, with that public-private partnership, we are looking to see if we can find a partner that's interested in offering those services and opening our swim center on our behalf here in the city for our residents. Let's see. Pam, how does a public-private cooperation work? As it relates to parks? In parks, it's kind of the same. So the senior center and swim center are actually kind of park programs, and we have that RFP kind of. It was written very open so that organizations could, for example, if they wanted to run our animal farm or some of the recreation programs, as we had to close some of those programs because of COVID-19, which was really difficult choices the council and I had to make in April. It's really important that we find a way to offer those programs safely. But maybe there's an opportunity here to see if other organizations can do so. And so, for example, this summer, ARC Day Camp that we couldn't operate because of the pandemic and because of the challenges that we faced and lost revenue, the Y offered a day camp out of our camp. And so again, it's our hope that we can identify those opportunities where we can partner and work together. The Downtown Everett Association picked up our beautiful flower program, and I think in coordination with the Girl Scouts who are, watering them and taking care of them, and those types of partnerships are great, and they're really community building as well. So I think that's pretty important. Let's see, Ryan, on the cops and community policing, does this allow flexibility to offset funds for more social workers embedded with the police? Great question. The program, the way it was currently written, doesn't do that. When we applied, you kind of have all these, you have to fill out the application. And so we applied kind of looking at the bicycle officers and traffic and neighborhood officers that, can kind of be that community policing present in its neighborhoods. But our social worker program is incredibly important, and I believe it needs expansion. We need more social workers, not less, to deal with some of the issues and help people in our community that are really struggling. So we are, as a city, looking at ways we can direct more resources into that area. This grant does not allow us to do that, but it does allow us to do other things, and so maybe we can shift resources to try to help and grow the social worker program, which is pretty important. I think one comment I've heard is they're available Monday through Friday, but some of those urgent issues happen on the weekends and the evenings, and so I'd love to see if we can expand it to better serve the community needs. So it's definitely on my radar. So I want to continue to urge everyone to put anything in the comments there that you might think of and come up. One thing, Dan, I think this is something that you're familiar with. As the community has asked me often about, why is this challenge in Everett so big? Why is the structural deficit such a big deal in Everett? And one of the things that I have tried to kind of relay to the community is how different Everett is. We are a very full service city. We have all of these, and I think you talked about that a little bit in just kind of learning about what the city does, and we do a lot. Most cities don't do all of this. The 2 golf courses, a swim center, a senior center, an animal shelter, 2 libraries, a fire department. These are services that a lot of cities don't have, and so when you think of us in comparison to other cities, we're pretty different. Especially here in the county, but also in the region. Yeah,
as part of our work, we did some benchmarking against other cities that were our size, right? And that was very apparent. We provide a lot of services, and you detailed a lot of them. And for a city our size, most of the other cities don't have and don't offer it to their citizens, all the different things that we're doing. And with that, obviously, comes expenses that come along with it, as well as some of the challenges of getting labor for it and everything else, right? So it was eye-opening to kind of go through that process and just see and feel thankful for all the things that the city is doing for its citizens. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm thankful for it. I love what we're able to offer our residents, and I hope we can find creative ways to continue to do so much of this important work. Let's see, Phil, are we considering slashing non-patrol positions to an effects-based policing where we target the element destroying our neighborhoods? I'm not sure I understand the question, and then maybe we ought to do less and sell or privatize. So we aren't slashing non-patrol positions. I can answer that part of the question. Right now we're looking at one civilian reduction in our police department, and any of the reductions we're looking at as a city to balance this 18 million are really challenging. I think there's things that are near and dear to our residents, and we hate to see reductions in our pool or our recreation programs, our library or other programs, and we don't think about some of the behind the scenes staff that work at the city, like this position, this one civilian in police, and they're really important positions that really help serve the community. So we're really pretty thoughtful about how we do that. But unlike the federal government, as a city, I have to balance the budget. I don't have a choice. And so it's like every year we've kind of whittled away at what we do. At the staff and programs we have, and you kind of get to the bare bones, and then the choices we make are really, really hard. And every person that is no longer working at the city means some level of services are not going to be able to be provided to our residents. And so, there are difficult choices ahead, and I look forward to getting the recommendations from the Fiscal Advisory Committee on kind of where we could go to address these types of things long term. And
to go back as well, Cassie, and to talk a little bit about why we're at where we're at from a fiscal standpoint, is going back to Initiative 747, right back in 2001, that put a lid or a cap on the property tax at 1%. And it was a Tim Eyman initiative that got passed by the voters in 2001. And basically every city or municipality has been dealing with that revenue that's been capped over time. And if your revenue is going up by 1%, but your expenditures are going up by 3%, at some point it comes and it starts to whittle away at the budget. And that's kind of where we're at, and it has been in that position for a long period of time, and have had, in order to balance it, I've been doing different things in order to get there. So that's why we're getting together, and that's why we're having the discussion. So.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's true. I think that explanation helps folks a lot. Let's see. Barbara asks, would the library fall under the public-private option? No, actually, the request for proposals that we have out there right now is really as it relates to just our parks and recreation and some of our facilities. Our library, our two Everett Library branches, the Everett Public Library is the way it works at the city is we allocate a portion of our budget to the library. It's traditionally been about $5 million. And then the library board decides how to use those services to provide library services to the residents of Everett. So the city doesn't really dictate the library. We just allocate the appropriate budget amount to the library. So they wouldn't be part of that public-private partnership. And should some of these extra services like golf courses be privatized? Jim asked about that. Did you actually learn about our golf courses in the Fiscal Advisory Committee, Dan?
Have we talked about them?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I think it's important that, early on as a council, I kind of said, yeah, why don't we just, sell the golf courses or do something, and that will solve our budget woes. And kind of understanding the golf are already a separate budget here at the city. They're operating kind of as a separate business model. And there's certainly been times where golf has really struggled, and the general fund has had to help kind of support and pay for golf. Honestly, right now, I haven't gotten a recent report, but I think our golf courses are doing pretty well. It's one of the few recreation activities that is COVID safe. And so I think they're being very well utilized. So we're not looking at privatizing them at this time, where our focus is really on the general fund that, parks and police and fire and, kind of the basic operations of the city, the library. But golf is something that I know the council has discussed a number of times, and we will continue to discuss the best and highest use of those courses and how to ensure great recreation in the city, but also something that doesn't cost our taxpayers a lot of money. So it's coming soon, I guess. But we're doing pretty good this year with golf. So that's, I think, the comments that I've gotten, and if I missed you, please let me know. I apologize. That's why, getting the comments in the Facebook stream is hard for me. I think we got one more question here ahead. Somebody asked the best way to participate and lend their voices to the budget process. Please lend your voices now. I have exactly 2 weeks to finalize the budget. Actually, I think it's less than 2 weeks, 13 days now, to finalize my draft budget and present it to City Council. So if you have thoughts, if you have concerns, suggestions, areas that you think I really need to take a look at, please email me at the city. cfranklin@everettwa.gov, and I will read that email, and I'll use it as I work with our city leadership to finalize the budget. And then that's not your last opportunity. Once I submit my draft budget to council, they have that budget for the next 2 months, and they'll be working with the finance department and discussing with each other what else they might need to address in that budget. And so I encourage you to email our council @everettwa.gov, and share your thoughts on the budget with them as well, as I know they will hear you and take that to heart as well. It's a good part of the process, and we love to hear from you. So Dan, any final comments from you? Again, thank you for all the time you're putting in on our fiscal advisory committee. I can't tell you how grateful I am.
No, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for your leadership, and just appreciate all you're doing. And as a city, this is a tough time with COVID, and we'll get through it. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Great parting words. And we're heading into the beautiful Labor Day weekend. So everybody enjoy time with your friends in your small bubble and family, and be safe, be well, and as we get ready for the fall. So take care, everybody. Good talking with you today. Bye-bye.